My name is Vladimir Novotny. I'm responsible for group strategic risk management, but my primary role is taking care of various non-credit related risks, plus doing portfolio management reporting.
Non-credit related risk is very interesting topic, because that's how we've been talking to several people at Home Credit, and they tell us about their pains with reporting data, automations using data, but everybody thinks about the outcomes, right? But you, as in your role as handling the global risk, what was the issue when you start as a company thinking about how to put the global data, global reporting together and democratizing to everyone in the company? What was in your head? What was the checklist of the top risks that you need to think about?
Well, when I came to the company, I find myself in a situation where we have data which we work with. I think the data were in good shape, but when I was talking across the company, beyond the risk management, then suddenly people stopped to understand me, because I was talking slightly different language, slightly different numbers, and then I realized that everybody in the company, every team has a different set of the numbers which they are running. So my problem at the beginning was that there were a lot of data sources which were scattered around the company, and nobody was speaking in the same language, i.e. understanding what numbers we are talking about. So it was very complicated to get across one common message.
And when you, what was the reason behind that? Why was it? You are a very large company, a lot of resources. You are very data oriented, because calculating credit risk is literally your core what you do, right? So why was it difficult?
It was difficult because there was a silos in terms of there was a finance data, there was the risk data, which were totally different, and we didn't understand each other essentially. So that we start to think how to solve that situation, and I came to the point that I need to somehow put data in one common format. And just doing a step back, the whole company, as a Home Credit, we were 10 countries, several locations across the globe actually, a lot of different data sources, similar but different, and we need to all these data put into one kind of format shape, so we are able to have them on one level and we can further work with that. We didn't have it. A lot of issue was concern data governance, so not sure who owns the data, where the data are originated. A lot of issues came from the data security. Once I produced the data, I sent it over the email to the recipients, and from that time point I lost the control about the data.
So this is interesting. You are literally the global company. You're 2019. You spent from US all the way to China, through India, Vietnam, right? So how did you think about this project? What was the prerequisites? What was your top 10 checklist that needs to happen? So this your vision of data democratization, one source of data to use for new hypothesis and automation, actually happens to come live. How did you think about it, and how did you come to how did this decision tree led you to choosing Keboola as a partner for this?
So we have number of pain points which we need to solve. One was the distribution of the data points across the company. Second was the data governance as such. We were not sure about how data were created, what was the right number. We had the issue with the data excesses. So once I produce my report, I send it over, I lost control about the data. So all these points boils down, we need to somehow create one common platform where all data will be handled and produced for the customer, internal customer. So then at that time point we choose that we need to take it from the ground on, and we spoke with few people, find one project manager who brought us all the knowledge about the Keboola, and we like the approach of how Keboola is democratizing the data, putting in one level, so we are able to build on that very strong layer, on the layer which would be a reporting layer.
Understand. So basically, you're saying that the architecture of Keboola was one of the choosing point. Was when I spoke, for example, to your CEO, he mentioned that the agility and the ability to actually start with one small project and another, and not to losing the architecture and governance was another strong point. Is it important for you to start small and then incrementally add?
Definitely. I prefer to have smaller projects which have clearly defined begin and end, so then the costs are under control. And by having a Keboola, we were able to get to the situation that we do not need to change the data sources. We could build on existing data sources, and therefore minimizing costs of implementation totally new data sources. And Keboola was able to give us the freedom of accessing new data sources quite quickly, so we do not need to have any further additional costs with the
infrastructure change. So there was not a big infrastructure change program, it was kind of like layering on top of that, using your existing infrastructure, whatever it was, and starting to work, right?
Exactly.
And that thank you. That's like one of the points we find more and more across our large enterprise clients from America to Europe as well. And how did you think about you are a regulated industry, and in every country there is a different laws, different regulations. How did you think about solving these security or compliance issues, like the whole governance? And how does Keboola enable you to actually do that?
Thanks to very deep implementation of the data access management, we were able to establish a situation where every user can have a different view on different data. So by that we establish very strong security environment when the data actually doesn't leave that environment, doesn't move around, and we are able to control who is using which data and what they can see. And that was extremely crucial in terms of we were working on the situation that we have HQ point of view, where you have information across whole company, and then you have different countries who sees a different set of the data. They should see only their own data. And therefore it was very important for us that country company can see only their local numbers, and group can see all the numbers.
And this, like strong governance model, how did Keboola support you?
The support was done through the AD, where we used the AD already implemented in our infrastructure, and therefore we could attach to every user specific rights, so we are sure that we do not see the data across.
And Keboola kind of like supports you in the virtualization of that and manage the rights correctly. You mentioned that you like to start with the small projects which are well defined, fast to. Does Keboola somehow support you in taking the results of one project and reusing it in some other project, so people don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time?
By having already one data source connected, when we were putting there a new country, for example, we could use the similar infrastructure, and therefore we can join more data rather fast. If the sources were the same, if the data structure were similar, the joining was then smooth. It was like a breeze.
Is there some particular function of the platform that you kind of like think is the top for you and is kind of like the clear distinguisher between anything else or everything else?
For me, very important part was that when I have bigger projects, huge project, usually you need to go to IT, you get all the specification, you need to wait for prioritization, you need to have an approval, then you wait until the sources are free. We didn't done anything of these. We have just very small team of the IT guys who are based on our requirements, enabling the data sources which we needed, and doesn't matter which sources it was. Even when there is an Excel spreadsheet, which we obviously doesn't like that much, but we can put that into the Keboola environment quite quickly, and therefore we can then attach that data in the reports as needed.
So basically, once you get the initial approval from security, compliance, and IT access, you don't need their work anymore, right? Their corporation, but yet they can audit everything, right?
Yes. On the beginning, of course, there was a lot of work to get Keboola as a solution approved, to understand how Keboola works inside. Once we had it, we didn't have to run any other requirements or other approvals, and we could just use them, expanding them as needed.
When I talked to your CFO, she had mentioned a very interesting thing. She said, I couldn't understand in the beginning of the project what other new things we will discover that we can do with Keboola, and automate new things in new areas. The ripple effects were really big. Was it for you similar? And if yes, do you have any examples of that?
On the beginning, most of my analysts were working in the way that they were trying to get data from point A to point B, and job was done. Now, since we have Keboola solution and the BI structure built up on that, we start work from point B when the data are ready, and we can analyze.
Yeah.
So the work has shifted from being a data pusher from point A to B to be doing the intelligence and doing the analysis of the data, understanding better what's going on in the companies, and give a proper assessment of the risks, and being more productive in creating reports. So what has changed. Previously, we were creating a lot of PowerPoints, because that's obviously the way how you present things to the senior management. And since we have a Keboola and BI solution over there, we use the BI layer, where everybody actually can immediately looks in it, and there's no necessity to have a PowerPoint presentation over top, and it saves tons of time.
This is really interesting what you said. You basically, if I may paraphrase, what I hear is like the people were before just like pushing the data, like doing the manual task, and now they moved more to enabling the intelligence within the company. So can you make a link that Keboola is an intelligence enabler in the company?
So, certainly, it enables us to do our real job, to do the intelligence and the analysis of what's going on. That's tremendous change.
That's awesome to hear. That's a outcome, right? Everybody wants to hear when building something, not like, oh yeah, we just use it, but like it enables us to build the intelligence within the company. It's like, thank you for that. And Gartner has this view of composable enterprise, right? So like you do one thing and you don't have to redo it in another department. You just compose it on top of each other, next to each. Kind of like Lego blocks, I would say. Just snap them on each other. Is that how you would describe how your company now works with data, or is it different?
Since we have a Keboola and all the infrastructure around that, it enables us to simply reuse what we already use somewhere else once you learn it to how to use it. Once the data are there, then we are able to create similar reports with different data inside, just to plug in the new data.
So we just use the underlying data products and just reuse it. That's interesting. Like it got even in such a shape or volume that you actually not only started to provide all of the data for the whole company, but you are now actually, implementing the same solution for other companies within your group and even for companies outside of your group. How did that start? That is incredible for me.
That's also incredible to me too, but once we realize we are quite instrumental with what we have, and Home Credit has this huge experience with all the solutions there. So we ask other companies within the group, within PPF group, if they might need a similar solution. And guess what we found? Everybody else is fighting with the similar issues, so we can very easily then plug and play and put it into the work somewhere else in other companies within the group. Because at the end of the day, financial statements, financial data are similar in every company.
Yeah, like your CFO mentioned things like reconciliation over the whole company. Your CEO was talking about user, approach and how the user demands changes and how you can now actually track it and see it in real time and react to it. What is the most kind of like interesting outcomes or product?
Actually, I would go somewhere what is not that much visible and which I like very much is as part of the building up whole infrastructure, we decided we need to be sure about the data core. So what we did, we spent a really huge amount of time of the glossary. So we have very specific designed glossary, all the definitions of the data, how to calculate various ratios are put in one space, and nobody can create some new definition without knowing us, because it doesn't work. So that's for me the biggest magic, because thanks to all these solutions now we have a really same language which we are talking about. Then we understand what's going on. We know that specific data has a specific definition which cannot be tweaked by a single user. It needs to have a common discussion if the calculation is wrong or right, and nobody can have a kind of freedom in that. We don't want that freedom having that.
And why was this not possible before? And by the way, when you say we don't want the freedom in that, how does it go with we democratize everything?
We democratize the data, we democratize the outcomes, but we need to be very clear about the inputs. You need to have a control what and how the inputs are, how they are created, what they stand for, and how we use them. And once somebody would like to use them, I'm free to use. Everybody can use any ratio which we calculate inside of Keboola, and can be
any
used. Any metric can be used anywhere, and it's the same ratio everywhere.
And why was this metric, like declaration, metric standardization, was not possible to do before you started with Keboola?
It was there was too many teams across the countries, across the HQ. Even on HQ we have the risk, we have the finance, and everybody has defined that. And nobody was actually having a one common space where can they use it. The space creation, the usage, the end usage, Keboola enables us to have one end usage point where we can, store all the data, all the matrices, and we can use them. That's what was it was actually a big cleaning exercise. It took us a lot of time. It's not that much visible, but it gives us great added value.
It's kind of like when you build a house, you want to make sure that the foundations are very strong so you can fast build on top of that. That's kind of like what I understand Keboola provides for you, the foundations, right? So with the governed access.
It gives us the framework, building blocks which we could use.
Interesting. And so like if you look before and after, are there some like quantifiable results that you are like, hey, the project is success because this metric went up so much and this we saved so much?
From my point of view, it was the biggest savings were the time savings of the people, and which we can calculate. One creation of one report is much faster than just playing around with the PowerPoints and at the end, you don't know what type of data are in the PowerPoint because it was copy pasted several times, and you forget where it comes from. Then you cannot reconcile it back, and it's cumbersome. It's cumbersome. We don't have that now. That's one point where you can save. And second point where you can save, it's very hard to justify how much is that we start to really doing the analysis of the data, and we are able to produce with the same workforce very big amount of the data reports which are necessary for a variety of reasons.
This is kind of like what I hear as a resonating theme throughout your company, that you are now able to do, if I rephrase it, more tests, hypothesis, test them faster across the whole company. And your CEO actually said that the results are actually compounding exponentially.
Exactly. The reason being is before, when somebody wanted some data, some analysis came to us, we need to think it, create it, tailor-made analysis, send it back to the user. Now, once we create the analysis, we make it published somewhere, and people can access that instantly when they want to. So from that point of view, when somebody needs to have some analysis, I ask them, have you looked on the source? Have you see that? And they say, oh yeah, that's there. So, and I save my day.
Perfect. That sounds like a perfect day, actually. And so, like, looking forward, what is your kind of like on your timeline for the next 2 years, and how can Keboola support you in that?
Definitely, I would love that this solution is being used more often in the group because it's created here in Home Credit, and we can use it somewhere across the group very easily. Big saving of time and resources might be there. Plus, as you know, PPF Group as such is in various countries, various locations, so it's ideal solution for plugging data from various countries, various data sources, and make them on same level. For next 2 years, I would love to, that we are even able to bring the data much faster and creating quicker, and yeah.
That's interesting. And like, if you would now kind of like go back those 2 years and could keep the knowledge that you have now about the project, about Keboola, about everything, what would you do differently, or what would you say, like to you or somebody like you who's in a similar situation, how to think about it, how to actually decide what is the main points?
First, I would look how the data are scattered across the company. If there is a lot of data sources, I would say, well, guys, forget about some unification of data in one database. That would cost you a huge amount of the money. You need to recreate the processes. You need to hire a ton of consultants, which helps you to accommodate all these needs. The good thing on this is, doesn't matter how big the problem is currently, you can very smoothly solve it with the Keboola solution. And once you do that, you actually realize which particular problem you need to solve, the small problem which is on the data sources. And then you can focus your energy on one particular data source, which you can then create or buy a particular solution for that type of the data. Let's say, for example, accounting solution. You can just very clearly define what is your problem in the company, and you can then simply buy that particular solution, unplug the previous one, plug the new one. Users doesn't see any change. Apart of probably the data are much faster, quicker, and probably more correct. And that's it. That's how I would approach that.
That's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you as well.